What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Talk of the Tundra. I am your host, Numac. With me today is Ty. Ty, how are you doing after a overtime at the buzzer Packers win?
I'm good. It really felt like it was going to be my name and be a tie at one point after both offenses just shut down on their first drives in overtime. But glad Green Bay got the win, even if they didn't cover. They still got the win, and as we have had to resort to saying often this season, a win is a win is a win. I think that's the new MVP of Packers Twitter. It is true. Although we would like to see a little bit more consistent play, better play, really, I think from both ends. You could maybe even say on all three ends from Green Bay in this
Right.
game, but we will take the W and move on to next week in London.
As it has been every single game this year, it's been an ugly win. Like, we haven't had
Well,
any.
well,
Well,
I would have gladly taken that week one, but
yeah, well, that's
since
what
then,
yeah.
yeah.
They've been ugly games nonetheless. Uh, as we talked about, went to overtime, 27-24 Packers against Bailey Zappe. Only Brian Hoyer for the first, I think, two drives. But I think he went with a concussion. Just I don't really know how it happened. I watched the replay of Rashan Gary sacking Brian Hoyer. And like obviously concussions and head injuries are weird. They're probably being extra cautious given the Tua news.
Yeah.
But he didn't like hit Brian Hoyer in the head. He didn't drive him into the ground. It just kind of it was weird.
Yeah,
Um,
that and Adrian Amos, who made a
yeah,
shoestring tackle and went out. It did feel to me like, and I think it's kind of the players because it seemed like Hoyer really like got himself out of there pretty quick, and I think
well, yeah,
Amos
so
did
did
too.
yeah,
Yeah, I think for my read was the players saw the Tua thing, and maybe it was more prescient on their minds that the second concussion stuff and how risky this all is. And I think guys were like, "Hey, I'm not. It's love the game. It's regular season. There's one of these teams is a 10.5 point favorite. I don't want to die or have serious issues. Like I'm just going to be
right.
safe." Which I think is totally fine. I think
Oh yeah,
that's why you have 53 guys on the roster plus a practice squad.
yep.
That's the point. So that was my read on it. Because I don't know. Maybe those two guys would have checked out if the Tua stuff never happened. Maybe one would have. Who knows, right? But I
Right.
certainly agree. It did feel like there was some extra caution, which is a good thing. Like
Probably a good thing.
it's definitely I think definitely a good thing. But the team survived. It was a close game even without Hoyer and Amos in there.
Right. So we didn't get as much Axel Edward as we thought we'd get. Instead, we got rookie, I think, fourth round pick Bailey Zappe, who, for our all intents and purposes, played pretty darn well. And so we'll jump into that a little bit later. We talk about the defense, but talk about the offense a little bit. Rodgers is kind of a tale of two halves. He has always said, I think, throughout his career, that it's pretty rare for him to play two bad halves, and he talked about it last night at his post game presser too. We got one of those halves tonight.
Yeah.
The first half was pretty abysmal. It was not inspiring. There was nothing really to draw from outside of I guess one drive, the one to Doubs where he made that athletic catch. But man, otherwise it was slim pickings for Rodgers.
Yeah. I think the confusing part was that, and the first half touchdown was the Watson
Oh, that's right.
rushing touchdown.
My my
There
apologies.
was
Yep.
no thrown touchdown in the first half for the Packers.
Hmm.
I don't really understand it. I wondered aloud during the game, like is something up with his arm? They didn't attempt a Hail Mary on the last play of the first half. They
Right.
ran a play, just threw it underneath and did the lateral thing. Second half looked much better, and there were some strikes in the first half as well. He's also just missed a lot, and I don't
Right.
really know why. I mean, there was a deep ball to Christian Watson that it just seemed like kind of came out as a little bit of a duck, and it kind of like the wind caught
Yeah.
it, and Watson wasn't able to get to it, which is just I think for a lot of quarterbacks, pretty normal stuff. For Rodgers, not really. I mean, I'm just used to seeing lasers come out of the guy's arm. And I know he's in his late 30s now, and we saw some lasers in this game. It's just off. And not all of it can be attributed to, Doubs and Watson are, not adjusting to the ball, not running the right stuff. I mean,
Right.
Doubs certainly had a couple mistakes we'll get into. Also had a couple of great plays we'll get into. But Cobb and Lazard were getting missed on routes late in the first half. It was just very bizarre. It was just not working. And again, I think I would say even though they ended up winning, I have some reservations about not maybe seeing Aaron Jones enough. Although he did carry the ball 16 times. There were just some long stretches where it just felt like we weren't seeing him quite enough. Dillon also carried it 17 times. So the ground game certainly did get involved. I mean, they end up having nearly as many carries as Rodgers has attempts. And of course, they did catch, actually only caught one. Oh, no, they caught 4 balls, but Jones just didn't get a lot of yards. But it's just off. I don't know how much more we can really say. Just the decision-making, the throw decision-making, especially on the pick six, and the actual balls were just not there in the first half. But as Rodgers said after the game, doesn't usually have 2 of those in a row. Thankfully, that did not happen in this game.
Right. So playing off of that, Rodgers talked about a lot of his play in his post-game conference, and touching on, he didn't touch on this, I'm going to touch on it, but the ducks versus the lasers that we saw in this game, there is a couple, I think it might have been the Watson play or it might have been Lazard. They're going up the left side, and Rodgers just lofted it to whichever receiver it was. It just fell incomplete, but it was one of those real big arcing ones that just kind of drops harmlessly. And usually you see kind of Rodgers kind of drop that in there, but it just ended up not happening. And then contrastly, the second half, when he played better, he threw that absolute bullet to Tunyon. We're used to seeing those, that kind of throw from Rodgers all the time, and not the ones that just sort of fall harmlessly. And then the Hail Mary, LaFleur said in the post game that it just wasn't the look they got at the line, not to throw it. That's why they threw it underneath. And LaFleur said he did not want to see the pitch back to EJ from Cobb. He was like, nope, would have rather he just went down. Which is funny to see that they're just trying their best to win, but maybe we just go down next time and go into the half without turning the ball over.
Yeah, that I did for a second. I was like, this could get really disastrous if this ball gets punched or something and scoots out the wrong way. That also on the Tunyon drive, this was kind of it felt like a bad process, good results drive, because they start out pass, and gain a grand total of 0 yards on the first 2 passes. So the Twitter fingers were ready to rail about Aaron Jones just because he was so good in this game. But the third pass was deep right to Lazard for 32, and it was same deal. It was a complete contrast from the duck to Watson earlier, and I think that was the right side. I think both of those plays were the same part of the field. It was a laser that Lazard, it wasn't even open. We just laid out and hauled in. And that, I think, really boosted them and set the tone for the second half. It was early-ish in the game. You don't want to say this, but it kind of felt like a little do or die in terms of we got to get going. I mean, obviously we're not too worried about Bailey Zappe putting up 50 on us, but at a certain point, you got to get moving in the right direction. It took Green Bay quite a while to do that in this game. But the defense really did keep them in it, basically giving up 17 points. I think the second half, the defense is going to look and feel a little bad about how much they did give up to a New England team captained by a third-string quarterback, but in his rookie year. But still, they gave up 17 minusing the pick six, so certainly not a bad performance per se from Green Bay's defense.
Right. I was glad to see that they got Lazard mixed in the middle too. I think I'd probably say close to 50 of his yards were just on simple post routes towards the middle of the field. The first throw of the game for them was that 24-yard completion to Lazard, and then the subsequent play was the pass to Doubs, which he fumbled.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that they're getting people mixed
getting
in
down
the middle.
Getting down the field a little bit more too, which you could kind of say, oh, that did lead to the interception, but I think it made the offense really dynamic by the second half and on that first drive. That first drive was pretty much all of Rodgers' production in the first half.
Right.
I've got the play over. I've got the split stats here. So I don't have the QB ratings. One, because they're kind of made up. But anyway, I think you can kind of tell. You can kind of tell if it's good or bad.
Yeah.
First half, 4 completions, 11 yards, 44 yards, no touchdowns, 1 interception. Just not a lot getting done. And again, I think there was 25 yards total on the first drive between the Lazard play and the Doubs fumble. So that was pretty much all of that. That was almost more than half of the yards. The second half, though, 12 for 18, 157 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks. And then in overtime, Rodgers is 5 for 6 for 50 yards. First drive was bad, but the second drive, he was able to move the ball. The whole Packers offense was. A.J. Dillon, I think they like using him late because defenses just don't want to hit as much at that point in the game. A.J. Dillon was crucial in that drive too, but moved the ball, was efficient there. So yeah, certainly a tale of, 1/2 and 1/2 plus overtime for Rodgers and the offense in general, I would say.
Right. Touching on A.J. Dillon quick, LaFleur said post-game, I think it was I don't know who it was who asked, but one of the reporters asked if there was anything to A.J. Dillon getting used in overtime more than Aaron Jones.
Mm-hmm.
And it was basically what we've said all year is that A.J. Dillon's a great end of the game running back.
Yeah.
They do a lot more north-south running towards the end of the game rather than outside the tackles. So
also, I will say there was some question of is Jones a little banged up? It seemed like he was a little ginger at some points during the game. I don't know. I think if you play running back, you probably always are a little banged up, but
always hurting.
Yeah. But I think strategically it does make sense to give Jones, if you're gonna split it unevenly, let Jones build that rhythm late because it is a thing in football, man. It's hard to
Jones or Dillon.
Sorry, Dylan. Thank you. It is hard to just want to tackle a guy like that when you've already played, in this game, 70 minutes of football or whatever, 65 minutes of football.
Right. Yeah, and definitely a tough game physically for Jones. Of the parts I saw, he got his head turned on a face mask, got his hair pulled on the next drive in the first half. It was, it was a tough game for him. But going back to Rodgers briefly, I wanted to talk about this just as maybe something we don't see in the future. On the pick six, during his post-game press conference, someone asked what's going through his head, and he jokingly said, "You really want to know?" As if he knows he's yelling at himself. We talked about how that was the 4th pick six of his career, and that 2 of them have come on that route, and he doesn't like throwing that route. He just he doesn't like it for some reason.
Especially not against Jack Johnson or whatever the guy's
Jack
name
Jones,
is.
I think
Jack
it is.
Jones.
Jack Johnson's busy making banana pancakes.
Jack Jones, yeah, true.
I thought that was interesting. That one, as much as you give Rodgers grief about being able to recall all these plays and thinking he's so smart about it, I think that it's really cool that he can tell you yeah, I've had 4 pick sixes in my career and 2 of them were that play.
Yeah.
And so he talked about when he went into halftime, he had a little talk with himself with an assist from David Bakhtiari, and that kind of reset him for the second half. So it's at least good to see that he still has that mentality of being able to reset after all these years and not get too in the weeds with it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, it's not shocking. I would say that it's that route because it is such a risky one for a pick six. I mean, I'd imagine out of the other 2, I wonder if there's a batted pass or something in there just because it's usually pretty hard to throw on most routes that aren't short or off to the side where, you're going to have just so many offensive players between, wherever the pick is and the end zone. It makes sense, but yeah, it's just didn't seem like a good throw or a good decision, and combining those as a quarterback can be very costly.
Yeah, the pick six itself was definitely on Rodgers. It was even if that's a nicely thrown ball and Lazard doesn't fall down, it's still a pick six. Like
Yeah.
it was just one, a good play by the cornerback, two, a very poor throw by Rodgers.
Yeah, I mean, I think the best case at that point, given where the coverage was, is you try to lead Lazard out of bounds like really heavily, and maybe he can toe
Right.
drag in if he stays up, but not sure. It's just that route is tough because if it's built into the offense, like you just got to know sometimes it's just never ever there, and you can't even
Yeah.
try to throw it. And I think that's
Right.
probably why Rodgers doesn't like it, is because most routes, even if it's covered, like he'll make it happen. But that one, like playing so diagonally with the sideline, it's like it can
Right.
just never be there.
Right. Exactly. But that was one of Lazard's 8 targets, but he ended up with 6 receptions and 116 yards. Without a doubt, the best production game we've seen from Lazard this year. He had a couple touchdowns in other games, but not nearly as many yards and not nearly as featured as he was this game. I think this is one of like his truly first wide receiver one game we've seen this year.
Yeah, totally agree. Gained more yards than any Packers skill position player. Even Aaron Jones by one.
Yep.
But really, just like, and none of it was. I mean, there was some very nice catches, especially the sideline one. But it just felt like he's just doing his job. You know, kind of reminded me almost of like a Jordy Nelson game, and that like he's not constantly mossing people. Like Dobbs, I think, has flashier plays, even if there's less
Right.
of them. But he's just like he's out there running the routes, like making the catches, like just doing his thing. If he has space, he'll run. If he doesn't, he's just gonna go down and get back to the line. And I think that's the kind of receiver that, you know, is probably Rodgers' favorite. Like just keep going
Right.
out there and doing the routes and you know, just consistently making yourself a good target. And that's what I got from Lazard this game. And yeah, I think really encouraging. As much as we talked about and will talk about Dobbs and Watson and how important they are,
Mhm.
at the same time, like it's also really important that Lazard is good. Like the
Yeah.
Packers have this year goals, and he should still be the guy for this year. So I think it's almost underrated or like going under the radar how great he was and how important it is, and really hope to see more of this from Alan Lazard as the Packers, you know, go on this season.
Right, absolutely. I think to steal adage from Larry McCarron, who I was listening to the radio but yesterday, Alan Lazard just brought his lunch pail to work. He was working hard. He wasn't doing anything flashy. He was just getting the work done, clocked in, clocked out. So
100%. Yeah.
it was a good one from him. Yeah, let's talk about those rookie wide receivers.
Are
Uh,
we sure they're both wide receivers? I think one of them is a running back at this point.
you think that they would have drafted another running back, given how they use Christian Watson? And I'm like, on the one hand, real happy Christian Watson got his first touchdown in the NFL,
And he got to
which
Lambeau Leap.
and he got to Lambeau Leap, and I'm really happy that he finally got that burden off his shoulders. On the other hand, I really wish they just start using him as a receiver. Like
It, it, go ahead.
I know that there's a game plan and it's working. Like clearly the end arounds and the jet sweeps are working with Chris Watson in that role on this offense. But at the same time, I feel like there is so much more of an opportunity to see what he has at receiver and mixing him in more that way. That way you have 3 talented wide receivers at that position when you want to go 5 out or you want to go 4 out and just let him use his speed and get down the field to spread out that defense and open up the inside or open up the middle of the field, sort of the under routes, should they be there. And we just haven't seen that a lot outside of that first throw in that Vikings game.
Yeah, I mean, again, there was an attempt in this game, at least the deep ball
Right.
to him that the ball just sailed a little bit.
Hmm.
On the one hand, I would like to see him targeted more, really targeted more, not just the underneath stuff. On the other hand, I don't mind that they continue to do that. From the, you know, not from the Watson specific side, but just from the Packers as a whole. It's a good use of a player who does have some questions, you know, about his game right now as a receiver, as we've
Right.
seen, you know, in the Vikings game, but is sub 4.4 speed, and it's like you're getting real positive. You got a touchdown out of him on a play where I don't think anyone even touched him. Like
Right.
I do think it's good for him and for the team to keep him involved. What I hope is he continues to also get to run routes and actually be targeted. Like, again, he was once in this game. He had 3 targets. He had 1 catch for 8 yards that I believe was very underneath. I don't remember the other one, if it was a deep pass or not. I'm going to guess not, but I'm honestly not sure.
Mm-hmm.
But I just hope that they do both with him. But I don't mind the gadget stuff because it's working well for the team. And I think it keeps him involved, and at least he's like getting touches. And I think if his future is to be like, a Cordero Patterson kind of player, which I'm not shoehorning him into that now, but if it is, that's not terrible, and you can still get a lot of use out of someone like that. And it does seem like they're kind of shaping him up to be closer to the 3rd or 4th, probably 4th receiver. I mean, maybe lower than that when Watson is back, we'll see. Or when Watkins is back, we'll see. But also always having touches in there on the sweeps and screens and end arounds and that kind of stuff, which I'd like to see him a little higher priority, but Doubs has incredible catches. Lazard looks like wide receiver 1, and the vets have been good when they've played. So I kind of get it on the other hand.
The 2 players that came to mind for me, you said Cordero Patterson. I thought of Percy Harvin and Tavon Austin.
Yeah.
It seems like they're being cut from the same cloth right now, which...
Yeah, I guess that's fair, considering Cordero gets a lot more usage than Watson. Obviously, Watson's not going to be a true running back with these 2 guys that they have either.
Right, and Cordero Patterson, to start his career, was a true route running receiver, has now transitioned to that running back first, wide receiver second kind of role, which has worked well for him. Good for him. I just don't want to limit his use right away before we actually see what he can do as a receiver. Because I think he does have talent as a route running receiver.
I think,
as opposed to Tavon Austin and Percy Harvin never really got there.
I think Percy Harvin had some good years. I think if he ends up the injuries really derailed him, but if he ends up being what Percy Harvin could do, I think that's the best case right now for Watson. Is a good dynamic receiver who obviously can stretch, and that's what they use him for when he does run. He stretches the field well. Who also, they're going to make sure he just gets the ball, even if he's not getting those, even if the defense does bottle him up. I think that's a great comp, I would say.
Yeah. So overall, both rookie receivers get a touchdown, 1 running, obviously 1 receiving. And I think Doubs is continuing to show his athleticism on these touchdown receptions, and on just week in, week out, he's just really showing why we drafted him. I'm gonna see if I'm pretty sure I pulled the tweet up. The list of the 4th round receivers in the NFL history to record as many receptions, yards, and touchdowns as Romeo Doubs through 4 games. Your good friend Marcus Colston.
Oh, the quiet storm.
End of list.
Yeah.
Last week, that same stat with receptions, yards, and touchdowns through 3 games was Marcus Colston and Hall of Famer Steve Largent.
Oh, no. Wow. Steve Largent.
And then end of list.
Yeah. I think it's kind of funny that he got all the way to the 4th. I guess you do see some of the negatives on display with Doubs too, but I think not to make a player-to-player comparison, but Devontae Adams had a huge drops problem early in his career and then just figured it out. So I think you just kind of have to hope that Doubs figures out the ball security and I think general ball security is the biggest thing, whether it's the fumble, he lost 1 in this game, we talked about, or the drop touchdown, which some people I think are mad about, but I think generally is pretty obviously not a catch.
You mean Dez Bryant catch 2.0?
Yeah, pretty much.
I saw the play and I saw the replay, and it's I don't think Rodgers was too mad at Doubs for dropping it, because Rodgers in this postgame had talked about that that ball wasn't thrown well. He didn't put it in the right spot. Maybe it been a tad too long, but all in all, he caught the ball. The problem is that he was running full speed, falling down.
Yep.
And it's hard to brace yourself with the ball and everything in your hand.
Yeah.
And it just came out for all intents and purposes, he quote unquote caught the ball. He just didn't complete the process, which is one of those stupid NFL rules, but overall,
especially
great
stupid
play.
Because if he had caught it on the 2 and taken a couple steps and fallen forward, it's a touchdown.
A touchdown.
But because it happened in the end zone, you have to complete it all the way through. it's a little dumb, but also I get it because otherwise, like
Yeah,
if it was just at any point in the end zone, I mean, you could have like your hand on it for a second and just blast it and it's a touchdown. It's complicated. I mean, we're not here to debate NFL rules, but
right.
it would have been great if he held on to it and had a 2 touchdown game. But still, I'd say the one that did count, that touchdown, was like I don't know what about it necessarily, just like the way he hung in the air, just a
Hmm.
really cool and impressive Romeo Doubs touchdown. And I think there was a little bit of after the fumble, a little bit of like, oh, here we go. Is he not going to get targeted again?
I
And
was kind of feeling that too until I saw the touchdown. I felt the same way.
I think we're past that with Dobbs at this point. Like I just
Yep.
think Rodgers realizes, and maybe with Watkins back this changes. I don't think so. Like I think Rodgers realizes like the dude is special and he can make these highlight plays, and
Yep.
he's probably up there with Lazard at this point in terms of the guys he trusts to make all those plays. And if you look at it, those two had double the targets of anybody else on the Packers. I think Dobbs is just here at this point and will continue to be here even if there are some mistakes. Maybe because there's just not other options, but also
Right.
I just think because the upside is pretty damn apparent by now.
Yep. Post game, Rodgers said at his press conference, "quote Romeo's growing and making some plays. Hit him twice. I hit him twice in the last drive, so obviously I have confidence in him." And I went to him on that key third down with 2 minutes left in the game. That was him talking about just sort of trusting Dobbs. Like that was kind of the narrative, quote unquote, through the first few weeks is like, do you trust these rookie receivers? Are you gonna sort of ice them out after they have drops? And Rodgers kind of put that to bed last night that um he's just gonna have to keep throwing to him because he's proving it. And then
Yeah.
on that touchdown, two things. And like still Rodgers in his presser had said that he told Watson and Dobbs like in training camp and just throughout their talks not to look for back shoulder throws because he's like I know they watch tape and they know that I like throwing that to Tay and like throwing to Nelson and yada yada yada. He's like don't look for them, like try to catch it square and not reach for it on the back shoulder. Well, that throw happened to like float a little bit on Rodgers and Dobbs made the great adjustment to catch it back shoulder. And after the game, uh, Roger said he told Romeo, "I'm going to keep coming to you. I'm proud of you. That was awesome on the last drive. An awesome back shoulder catch." So he recognizes the kid has talent. That's
Yeah.
all you can really ask for at this point.
Yeah, it was just the way that play. It seemed like, I mean, it's not a super long ball or anything, but just the way he adjusted to it and reeled it in. It was just like, for me, it was like, oh wow, like that's you just don't see a play like that all the time. So
Yeah, and even from Dobbs to the when he's at his locker there talking to him after the fumble, he was talking about like not getting too down and it's like becoming a more mature player and recognizing that
yeah,
at one point is the end of your career. And then he's just thankful to know that he'll have more opportunities to make plays, and he did. So great presence of mind by Romeo Doubs.
yeah. And I think going back to one last thing on like the he's not going to target him thing. There were some like stuff shared on Twitter and everything about he hasn't targeted him since for a
Yeah,
while after the fumble. He had thrown like 3 passes over
yeah,
like 10 in-game minutes. Like nobody had been targeted much since. I think the Packers offense in general was ground to a halt. So I don't know if that was an agenda so much as just not many plays happening
right.
for the offense. But
Um, Real quick before we move to the defense, unless you have anything else on the offense, uh,
trenches a little bit. I figured we could
Prentice a
do a
little bit.
trenches transition maybe.
Yeah, well, we'll get to that in a second. Randall Cobb,
Oh,
as you talked about, showing up his Wes Matthew traits again. That's all I wanted to say. He
when
was
they need him, man.
when they need him. Like I saw a couple plays in the second half where he just made two really big third down catches, and that's when they needed him.
I'm guessing you didn't hear the broadcast for those, but Romo talking about him. It's kind of cool. Romo said, it feels like Cobb is younger Cobb again. Like he's really getting separation on these routes and just hauling in balls. And I was like, it kind of does feel like that, Tony. I think
Yeah,
you're right.
a little bit. Yeah, I saw. After he says it, I reckon like I'm realizing, yeah, he's kind of getting that separation. But yeah, cool bit by confirmed good analyst Tony Romo.
I thought it was a good Romo game. I know people hate Romo sometimes, but he wasn't doing the calling the plays things too much, and I thought his insight
I
was
like
good.
that.
I don't mind it either.
Yeah, like I like that. It gives me like I feel like I know more than I do when Romo does that.
Oh yeah, I was thinking that too. I was thinking the same thing, Tony.
Yeah.
Yep.
Trenches. It was a an up and down game for the trenches, especially on offense. I feel like we saw EJ not play as well as we would have liked to see him play. But on like the literal flip side, I didn't see Bakhtiari give up 20 pressures either.
Yeah, I think once he got beat, and that might have been the only time. I don't remember if it was a Rodgers sack or what. Rodgers actually only gets sacked once, which feels pretty low, and there's only 3 QB hits from New England. But
Hmm.
it really felt like Matthew Judon was wrecking stuff for especially a
Yeah,
lot of the first half. And I'll be interested to see like the amount of throws that were under pressure for Rodgers in that first half, which I'm sure, he's took some shots. I think it might have been Bach getting beat the play Rodgers. I don't remember what the actual throw was. I don't think it was the pick six, but he got lit up on one of the balls early. It wasn't a sack, but he did take a shot. So yeah, I think not a. It's still that the run blocking was there. I mean,
yeah,
we didn't talk about him much, but Jones and Dillon combined for 183 yards. Jones 6.9 yards per rush. Dillon 4.3, which he's not getting as much separation. His yards are probably a little bit harder to come by, but both of those
right.
guys, a lot of success on the ground. The Packers nearly 200 yards rushing, 199 overall. So the run blocking was there enough, but I'd say pass blocking, especially in the first half, is a little difficult. But
Hmm.
still, it was nice to see, more plays down the field as we've talked about, getting away
Yeah,
from running that Bears Justin Fields offense and letting these guys actually go make plays. I think we saw why that's worth doing in this game.
right. LaFleur said that they are going to continue to take those shots, even if the end result is an incompletion, because they want to let the defense know that they're willing to take those shots, and they are working on not being a results-oriented offense. So it's all about like the process. So if like a deep incomplete pass down the sideline falls incomplete, obviously they're okay with that, so long as it sets up a bigger play or an as big play later in the game that has more impact
Yeah.
on them winning.
Yeah, but I just think it looked like the offensive outside of the first half, especially Judon and company making some great plays. Overall, though, Rodgers again only gets sacked once and is able to sit back a little longer than the
Yeah,
first couple of weeks and make those throws downfield, which is a great sign.
yeah. That sack wasn't a good one. I didn't like that. It was the play EJ got blown up by Judon, and I don't know if like Rogers was like flat footed or something, but Judon like got his arm on him, but
Yeah,
like wasn't grabbing. He was just kind of like pushing him, and then Rogers like just like didn't move. Like there was a lane for him to escape and kind of step out and evade the rush and just didn't and fell down. I was again first half Rogers.
he. I think I don't know if I can't remember if it was Judon now or not, but at one point he almost got thrown down by like one hand and does like almost like a full flip, like
Oh,
kind
that
of.
wasn't that the fourth quarter,
Yeah,
wasn't it? Yeah, that
yeah.
was Judon too. He like did like a ballerina twirl and
Yeah, just
almost
to
stayed
stay
up,
up.
but
I honestly, I was like, he's gonna fall over. It's gonna be a weird looking sack, but he credit to him for staying on his feet there.
yeah,
Yeah, it was under pressure, but again, only took the one sack and was able to still make some throws down the field, which was good to see. But yeah, overall, I think continues his trend of like playing and being okay, but not great, which is unfortunate. But
yeah,
Bakhtiari seems to be bringing the usual Bach stuff, which is again just awesome to see. After our line the whole year to start was like he's not real until he plays again. It's been awesome to see him play again. I
been
think
awesome.
he played more of this game as well.
Yeah, it's been awesome to see him actually exist as a football player
Exactly.
and see why we paid him that money. Like
Yes.
money aside, money doesn't matter,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
like it's nice to see him live up to the expectations that we wanted to see him after being out for so long.
100%. Should we do
So,
defense?
yeah, so we jump into the
The Rashan
defense.
Gary show?
We can do that, or we can go defensive trenches.
Kind of
Whichever.
similar,
Yeah,
except worse if you talk about it trenches as a whole. Because I
yeah.
don't know how many guys look good on that
Let's
defensive line besides
let's
Rashan.
uh let's start with the good.
Okay.
Rashan Gary. Dude's a dog.
Yeah.
Confirmed dog. think he had 2 sacks,
Two
right?
sacks and a tackle for loss, and 7 total tackles, which is he was everywhere, man. Like he
Everywhere.
was making
Everywhere.
plays, wrecking stuff, very much matching, I think, what Judon was doing on the other end. And just really, it just felt like even the stats are good, but it seems like it's honestly selling him short. It just felt like he was everywhere when the Packers needed him to be. Just a truly awesome game from Rashan Gary. A lot of like
Right.
jump up out of the couch and get pumped stuff from him. And again, I think almost all of the big plays coming when the game was like really up in the air still. I guess which pretty much the whole game because it went to
Right.
overtime. But every play he made felt like a big play.
Right. There was the first drive for Bailey Zappe, when they were really backed up on like the 4 yard line, and it was third down, and Rashan Gary did a little stunt where he like faked driving off the edge and then went around to come up the middle, and I was like, man, don't let Rashan Gary absolutely annihilate rookie quarterback Bailey Zappe, because that was going to end badly because he was coming full force right down the A gap essentially, and Zappe ends up rolling out and throwing a complete pass to make it fourth down. But I like remember thinking, I'm like, wow, thank God that Zappe saw him coming, because that would have been a awful end to a first drive for a rookie quarterback.
Yeah. Yeah, especially while it took that drive, I think, for him to settle down a bit too. So I don't
Yeah,
know if he would have been able to settle down if Gary got home on that one.
yeah, exactly. But overall, Rashawn Gary, that dog, I don't think I've seen defensive player of the year odds for this year, but I would imagine Rashawn Gary's kind of up there.
I mean, certainly has been one of the big standouts for Green Bay side this year. That's for sure. Really, I think actually we've got the full grades aren't out, but we've got a PFF blurb on Gary.
Okay.
If you're making a list of elite edge rushers in the NFL, you better include Rashan Gary after today. He recorded 2 stops in run defense that pales in comparison to what he did as a pass rusher. He racked up 3 sacks, so they count sacks differently. So,
Okay.
according to PFF, he got a third one too, including knocking Hoyer out of the game and another forcing a fumble he recovered, and 2 more pressures on only 21 pass rushing snaps. So basically, a fourth of his pass rushing snaps, he either got the sack, and I wonder if that's the fumble doesn't count as a sack, or I'm not sure where the discrepancy is. But
I don't know.
and 2 more pressures, which basically mean obviously harder to complete passes under pressure in those snaps. So really, again, just further confirmation Rashan Gary was wrecking stuff.
Odds from this website as of September 27th have him at plus 2,500 behind Micah Parsons, Miles Garrett, Nick Bosa, Aaron Donald, and Joey Bosa.
It's a good list. He'll probably rise
Good
above the
list.
Bosas after those injury news. At least
Yeah,
one of the Bosas
yeah.
this week.
And Miles Garrett, he didn't play this week because of
Oh
his
yeah,
his
his
car
car
crash.
accident. Yeah,
Yeah, he's shaping up to have a fantastic season. Already is having a pretty good season, but shaping up to be a special one. But run
but
game
I
defense,
was gonna say let's do bad trenches.
let's do bad trenches. It's concerning. It's I think you talked about how inconsistent it is.
Yeah,
Like there's times when they just look good, they're stopping the run for a couple yards, and maybe that's just how football is once in a while. You just end up know you just know for a pretty high certainty what play is going to be run based on team and game planning stuff like that. But uh Damon Harris, 18 carries, 86 yards and a touchdown. Ramondre Stevenson, 14 carries, 66 yards. Uh but for a total, if you take out Kendrick Bourne's 15-yard rush, that's about 152 rushing yards again for a pair of running backs against the Packers, which isn't going to be good when you face top tier running backs like you do this week against Saquon Barkley. Like I just think it's not sustainable to be letting up 150 yards per week rushing.
especially against a team that started with Hoyer and then had Bailey Zappe in. Like I
Right.
put it, it's the defensive line. I think first and foremost, we've seen them be up and down. Like certainly down against the Vikings when it felt like they just really didn't accomplish anything. In this game, the pass rushing was better, although there were still some plays where, like mostly off play action, Zappe was able to sit back there and the guy throws kind of a slow ball, but he hit his
Yeah.
throws. I think seems like a pretty good, backup to the backup quarterback. He was able to complete passes, not anything special, but really had a lot of time on some of those plays. And then the rushing, it's on the defensive line. I'd also say it's on Joe Barry and the linebackers too. Like it should be easier to make it hard to run the ball when the
Yeah.
guy under center is a 4th-round rookie who's never played before. Like there's no way that you should be able to run 32 times for an average of nearly 5 yards a carry when that's obviously going to be most of the Patriots offense. I mean, Zappe passes for 99 yards on 15 attempts. Like it's not like he's absolutely slinging the thing when he's out there. So I thought it was a little concerning against a team that really, in the past game, I would guess most of his yards were off play action, right? Like everything was built off the run in this game. The fact that they didn't even play that well against the run and gave up some chunk passes, I thought was concerning. It's just like it shouldn't be that hard to stop a one-dimensional team. So again, giving up 17 isn't a ton. Kind of is a ton though at home against Bailey Zappe in the past. They have a good offensive line, but like it just should have been easier, it felt like, to contain. Especially you look at the second half where it was nice to see the offense kind of snap out of it and get going.
Yeah.
What was not nice was giving up 2 straight touchdown drives to the Patriots to start the half. And really, that's the reason the game is in the balance. You only give up – defense basically holds their offense to 3 plus the pick 6 in the first half. But then the first 2 drives of the second half, back-to-back long touchdown drives, 75 and 66 yards. Just can't be letting the Patriots move the ball like this.
Exactly.
Freaking Bailey Zappe, man.
I think it might be a case of the Packers playing down to their competition, which is like the bane of my existence, and it's seeming that was all Wisconsin sports are doing it right now. The Bucks have done it for years. The Brewers have done it all season. Now the Packers are doing it. Yesterday, the Patriots running backs combined had 167 yards rushing at Lambeau. In the week 2 against the Bears, they had 180 yards rushing. And then obviously last week they held Leonard Fournette to like 34 yards rushing. And then week 1 against the Vikings, I believe they held Dalvin Cook and Alexander Madison to 126 yards. So it's like, man, if we could just play the run game like we did against Leonard Fournette every game, that'd be good. That'd be pretty darn good. But it's just like, I don't know where it's player focused or where it's Joe Barry focused. At what point does it become a scheme issue versus just a player issue? And I think that's something they need to figure out soon. Otherwise, you're going to have troubles against another team that doesn't have a good quarterback and a good receiving core in the New York Giants, but has a really good running back in Saquon Barkley. And I think that's what could be a huge thing next week, of just seeing Saquon dash the defense.
Yeah, and that's a game where we're not sure who's going to go at quarterback for the Giants, so it should be a similar idea if Daniel Jones is unable, that like the pass game shouldn't be that much of a threat. It shouldn't be that hard to make. I mean, Saquon is Saquon. He looks great this season.
He does.
But running backs, I think maybe less than any other position in football, just rely on everything else to such a great extent that you should still be able to limit them. But I mean, you look at those 2 touchdown drives, and there were some chunk passes mixed in, but both of them featured times when the Pats were able to run like 4 or 5 straight downs and move the chains doing that. Just shouldn't be that easy. And, I think both of them, multiple yards or multiple rushes of 10 plus on both drives, or maybe just the one, but there was a 7-yarder on the other one. There was also the delay of game controversy. It was really late. And at this point, like, just do a shot clock. Just do a shot clock. Like, why not? What is the logic for giving the extra beat? That's totally up to interpretation. I don't
Right.
really get the point. Like, blare a horn, if the ball hasn't been snapped, it's a delay of game. It just seems so much simpler. And then there's no issue. Like, it's very cut and dry. Make it challengeable. Make a light go
Yep.
off or whatever. Like, it would be very simple to make this entirely cut and dry. Like, we talked about the catch rule. The catch rule, you can't do that for. It's always
Right.
going to be up in the air a little bit. Pun intended, I guess, because the ball is too. But this thing does not have to be like this. And the fact that the Packers have basically gotten burned 2 weeks in a row, they still got the wins, but it's just
Yeah.
kind of stupid, man.
Yeah, I totally agree. I was thinking about the same thing. I was thinking about making it challengeable. Like,
Yeah.
that's no doubt they absolutely should be making this play challengeable because it's easy to see. Clock at 0, is ball moving? Like, if ball's moving at 0, that's fine as long as it is moving.
Yeah.
But the shot clock idea is great. Like, just make the buzzer
Yeah.
go off when it hits 0. Like,
It's so simple. Like, it's just do exactly what basketball does. That's why imagine the NBA,
oh my
the
god,
absolute chicanery. If LeBron and the Lakers are playing and the ref has to look, see the 0, look back, and then blow the whistle. Like, it would be. I mean, obviously, it happens so much more that it's really impractical. Or it's so much faster, but also like, it's just a stupid idea to do it the way they do it.
right? It would be. I think players would hate it. Like, quarterbacks would hate it.
I'm sure they would because they get away with delay of game every Sunday.
Like the first year or two, just because of like how disruptive it would be to the game. But at the same time, it makes it so much easier and takes the controversy out of a lot of these things. And it's, again, not that the Packers haven't gotten away with it too. They've gotten burned on touchdowns with it twice in 2 weeks. So, which is annoying.
Yeah, and part of me wonders, does the call have anything to do with the coverage on the play, which was very bad? I think that's maybe reading into it a little too much, but
Right.
maybe.
Yeah. Talk about the Giants next week real fast. They might be down 2 of their starting quarterbacks. Like, Daniel Jones might not be able to go. I think Tyrod Taylor is like pretty sure not going to go.
Poor
'cause
Tyrod.
he got pulled out of the game after being subbed in for. I think after one series he got hurt after being. I think Daniel Jones wasn't playing well and they wanted somebody else, and then he got hurt. So they had to put Daniel Jones back in, which is hilariously Daniel Jones. But yeah, they might be down to another third stringer, so we could see a very similar game next week in London.
Yeah, I don't think they had anybody else.
Yeah,
I think they were a 2 QB team, which usually I think is smart, but it wasn't good there. So yeah, it could be someone that they just have to like sign. We're gonna see like, I don't even know who would be available.
I saw some people talking about it. It was a no-name person.
Yeah.
Which, like, all due respect, sorry, buddy. Like, I know you're probably pretty excited to get your start. We'll know your name when we know your name.
I just hope that this week's upcoming London game is not as close as Sunday's London game was.
I agree.
That's all I want.
That was a good game for what it's worth. Like, it was fun. I just again
kind of like this game. Probably shouldn't have been. Vikings
probably shouldn't have been.
Saints down QB1, running back 1, wide receiver 1, and Andres Pete, and still nearly won that football game. I think is a little bit of randomness in London. Do you see this is going to be the first London game with teams with winning records?
Which, like,
it shouldn't be. They tried to give it another crap game with the Giants, but they happen to keep winning football games.
Yeah, 1, it shouldn't be. 2, it doesn't surprise me because, like, the first 6-7 years of them playing in London was always the Jaguars.
Yeah,
and it went just to other bad teams. Like, the process behind it was Jaguars taking home games in London to try and grow their fan base and try and get some more fans out there and just general fan enthusiasm. But yeah, first game of 2 winning teams, and I'm sure it'll look just like it.
What else on the defense from this game?
I don't think I had too much else. I was happy to see Eric Stokes play. Not play, but play well.
Yeah.
Amos made a couple of good tackles. I'm sad to see he went out, as we talked about earlier.
The tackle that he got hurt on was just awesome. Like shoestring tackle in open field, the kind of thing that you either make a great play or the offense gets a chunk gain. It was a really nice play. Sucks to see he got, the potential concussion. I don't know if it's been confirmed or not, but
Right.
at least felt like he had a concussion after that.
Purely based on vibes, I'm really happy. Like vibes and just like watching the game. I don't know the exact advanced statistics. Like I know after week one after the Bears game, there was a lot of talk about the missed tackles in the secondary and in the linebacking core. It seems like our secondary is really, really good at tackling receivers in open space.
Yeah.
Running game, maybe not so much. Maybe they're getting kind of broken out there. But I think at least once a game this year, I've talked about, written in my notes that it's like, wow, really great open field tackle and a great spot by Eric Stokes. Great tackle by Rasul Douglas. Like, because Rasul had another one in this game too, where he just shot the screen and tackled. And so I think it's really awesome to go from a Dom Capers defense way back when they could not tackle in open space to seeing these guys now tackle in open space and make big stops when they matter.
Yeah, I think outside of the first touchdown, the delay of game touchdown, where the coverage really blew up, it seemed like overall they did solid, even down Jair and Amos, but hopefully they can start getting those guys back before we face a real quarterback again, because I do think there's probably some more holes that just aren't getting taken advantage of. But overall, the unit, again, held the Patriots to 104 passing yards. They should have, but still nice to see considering there were, plenty of guys who had to get bumped up, including Rudy Ford, the special teamer, who filled in and seemed like played fine on defense.
Right. That's what I talked about in the pregame or in the preview pod this week, was that these next 4 games are really important for the Packers, including this one, because they're not going to be playing top-level quarterbacks. They're not going to be playing top-level teams. They should be getting all these wrinkles ironed out so that when they go into the second half of their season, where they're going to face better quarterbacks and better teams, they're ready to compete and ready to actually play up to playoff-level competition, as opposed to the Bears, as opposed to the Patriots, Giants, Jets, and Commanders. The second half of the schedule is definitely a little harder than the first half, because after the Commanders game, they play the Bills, the Cowboys, the Titans, Eagles, the Rams, the Dolphins, and the Vikings again, and then Lions twice. So, and the Bears again, obviously, but that's a lot of good teams, a lot of playoff caliber teams right now, as opposed to the Bucks and the Vikings in the first 4 weeks. So through the Commanders game at the end of October, they would have played essentially 2 expected playoff teams, not counting the Giants, who are the Giants and probably the worst 3-1 team I've ever seen.
One last note. I wonder if we see old friend Micah Abernathy get elevated with the secondary injuries for this game in London. We'll see. Hopefully Amos is okay and good to go, but might be nice to have some more options there at least.
Yeah. Hopefully. I shouldn't say hopefully, but
yeah. We'd like to see him.
Micah Abernathy stanship.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
agree on Stokes though. I think the story all year with him is, haven't heard his name a ton. He's made some nice tackles, which that's a great combo for a cornerback. So we'll take that.
Yeah, if you're not getting your name called, it means you're probably not getting thrown at. And if you're not thrown at, it means your guy is not open.
Exactly.
It's not like he's wide receiver 2 or 3. He's cornerback 3 or 4. He's cornerback 2 essentially.
Yeah, right now for sure.
Right now he's 1 with Jair out, but when Jair's healthy, he's 2.
Yeah.
Awesome. Anything else? No defense talk. Cut up Mason Crosby.
Yeah. That if he missed that, I don't know what I would have done.
It's weird not to have doubts about a kick. I had no doubt he was making that kick.
Amari Rodgers made a good play. It got overshadowed. The punt, I don't remember. It was late in the game, but I don't think it wasn't overtime yet. I think it was fourth quarter. But the Pats punting from near their own end zone, and the kick was bouncing in front of him, and he snagged it and brought it forward, probably less than 10 yards. But that sucker looked like it would have rolled quite a while or bounced quite a while behind him. So it was nice to have the awareness to snag that and do the unsafe move, which we see him do the safe move too often. There was a penalty that kind of ended up not mattering as much, but not his fault. And I thought that was a heads up high IQ play to try and flip the field in your favor. So we've ragged on Amari Rodgers, who has not done a lot of great stuff, but that play in particular, I thought, it's a nice Amari Rodgers play.
Fair enough.
The bar is low, but that was a nice play.
The bar is the floor. Is that the old Michael Jordan quote? This ceiling is the roof.
Yeah. Yeah, this is the opposite.
This is the opposite. Alrighty. If nothing else, good, ugly win by the Packers this week. We'll be back Thursday for a preview of the trip across the pond to go to go to London for the Packers' first time playing overseas against the New York Giants. 8:30, bright and early Sunday. Little morning cup of coffee, maybe little waffles, hash browns, maybe. To go with your football.
Maybe some beans. Be very on brand or on trend for the London game. Get some beans in that breakfast.
Yeah, that's what you really want is beans to go with your toast and eggs.
Yep. Celebrate the London game the right way, folks.
Celebrate London the right way, folks. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for listening to another episode of Talk of the Tundra. We will see you again, as I mentioned, on Thursday for the preview of the Giants game. Ty, thanks so much.
Numac, thank you.